everyone, time for a video request. So, geez, this printed out really badly, but this is from Arnie Gamer, and I think you've changed your YouTube username again, so I don't know what you're called right now, but you were called Arnie Gamer at the time. Anyway, the request was, I really would like you to rant about music because I have a background in music and there's something that I never got off my chest. And I asked a music rant, any particular aspect of music you had in mind. Arnie Gamer said, music rant, maybe the stuff that you don't like about the industry in your experience. Now, when it comes to music, because I've done a lot in music, I have a lot of little things to nitpick. And this one for today came up when I was having a phone call with someone from my university. They're trying to get money fundraising off me, but anyway, they did a really good job of pretending to humor me and all that kind of stuff. So when the topic of music came up, they asked me some questions. And so this video is not so much what I didn't like about the music industry, it's more of people's reactions and perceptions of music. So I'm sorry, Arnie Gamer, or whatever you're called now, this is maybe slightly on a tangent, but it wouldn't be me if we didn't go on tangents. So yeah, in this phone call, I don't remember exactly how the topic came up. We were talking about how I'm a musician and, stuff about how you do music. And at some point I mentioned that actually music doesn't come naturally to me. The thing that I was really good at in high school and even primary school, the thing that I was really good at all the time was mathematics. And of course, anytime you mention that you're a musician and you were good at maths, people are always like, I bet that the mathematics would have really helped you in music and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, and they're sort of implying that being good at maths and being good at music kind of go together. And I'm just like, no, that it's got nothing to do with it. The idea that maths and music are connected, you're distorting things. So let me complain about a few things when people think that my maths ability has anything to do with my music ability. First of all, if music and maths abilities were linked in some way, which is what this assumption is implying, I would have a really hard time explaining the students that I went to music school with. So I did my undergrad degree in music. I have a Bachelor of Music majoring in music composition and music production. And I gotta tell you, the students that I went to uni with, on the whole, were not good at mathematics. And they also complained about not liking mathematics, they have no interest in mathematics, they don't care, it wasn't something they were good at in school, and it's something that they continue to struggle with. If music and maths ability was really interlinked, then these musicians, many of these musicians were actually quite good. They would be awesome at maths, but they're not. It doesn't make any sense. And at the same time, I also went to, I've been in so many degrees and done a semester of first year. And one of the first ones that I did, I was in the advanced maths courses at the University of Sydney. And I'm telling you, those were not musical people. They were full-on nerds. They had no interest in music. So if there was a real link between music and mathematics, you'd see a lot more mathematical students who are musical and a lot more musical students who are mathematical, but you don't really. I will say though that I went to a private school and you did find a lot of quite intelligent people were decent at maths and decent at music, but that's not necessarily about them being linked. I think that's more to do with the opportunities that some of these kids had, because if you think about it, this is a private school, so the parents quite often were well off, which means that they got their kids music lessons when they were young, and they've also had a pretty decent start to life, and maybe their parents are in things like finance, my parents are in finance, they're good with numbers, maybe that explains part of why I'm good with numbers. Yeah, so, that's more of a socioeconomic thing, I think, and not that, you could not use that as proof that music ability and mathematical ability are at all linked. I think that's bullshit. So, that's my first point on why this is not a thing. So the second thing I want to mention is that when mathematics does appear in music, for the bulk of musicians, it's incredibly simple. Here's some of the sort of mathematical things that most musicians have to do. One of them is counting to keep in time. Gee, that's hard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. or like, you know, different ones like 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a, or 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. Like, that's not hard. Another thing is knowing how long notes and rests go for, but a lot of that is often quite basic as well. You know, you have your whole note, your half note. It depends on whether you're going by American or like the other system. I don't know if that's like a European thing or whatever, but like whole notes, semibreves, crotchets, quavers, you know, all the divisions of things. Most of them are just cutting things in half, or you get cutting things into thirds, and then there are some variations. But that's not hard maths either. That's mostly just like addition or multiplication, division kind of thing. Those are pretty basic operations, and you can kind of do a lot of this intuitively. Like, you don't need to think hard about how long your crotchet's gonna go. Another thing is time signatures, which look like fractions, but they're kind of not really. I mean, like 3/4 time is just you have 3 crotchets in a bar. That's not really that hard to work out. And like, if you don't read music, you don't need this anyway. You can just intuit it. And that whole thing about counting, like the 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, that is kind of similar to the time signatures thing. Like, it's very basic. And then you can kind of also say that like patterns are mathematical, but once again, that's very intuitive. You can kind of just follow along. I mean, if you've ever, or even if you remember being in school and sometimes they try and calm you down with a pattern, so the teachers are all like, and you're expected to copy it, so all the kids are like, thinking about maths and patterns. That's really basic. That's just something you can listen to and copy. I mean, some people suck at copying that stuff, but like, it's nothing to do with mathematical ability. You can do that without mathematical ability. So yeah, a lot of the like mathsy things that are in music are actually really basic, and they're kind of things that you can just listen and work out yourself. I mean, if you're reading music and you're in the more like compositional side or the classical side of things, sometimes you get a little bit more into that, but for most musicians it's not an issue, and even when you're classical, a lot of it just comes to you as you improve at your skill. Okay, so number 3 is more about perhaps why people think that music ability and maths ability have anything to do with each other, and it's actually because more of like the physics of sound and acoustics and so on. So that's more of like a physics thing. There was one subject that I did in actually my audio degree, because after I finished my composition degree, I went back and studied a bit of the audio stuff because of course I was interested in recording myself, and I considered that maybe I wanted to record other people in the future, but turned out to not be my thing. I can talk about that another day. But anyway, so I did the audio degree, and one of the things in that is, and even in the composition degree, you do a bit of basic sound theory, but we went much deeper into it. And so like, you know, if you think about, say, a guitar string, how that's working is it's sort of vibrating in, like, here's your guitar, here's your string, and it's sort of vibrating, it's going up and down, and that's displacing the air, and, you know, it's resonating with the guitar and all that kind of complicated stuff. But basically, like, you know, it's doing that, it's pushing air around, and then if you cut that in half, okay, and now you've got like a smaller version on both sides, or like one side or whatever. You're cutting the string in half, that raises the pitch by an octave, and depending on where you divide these strings is how you get the different pitches. But you don't need to know that to be able to play guitar. That's just like, if you're interested in how a guitar works, you can look at the mathematical physics side of things. You don't need that to have music ability though. Another thing we looked at in acoustics, we actually did this assignment where we had to analyze the sound in a room with the view to making it like good for mixing. So I actually did a bunch of measurements in one of the rooms at uni and made a bunch of recommendations about how you would fix the different problems and so on. But this is about being an acoustic engineer, I guess, and it's got nothing to do with music ability. So yeah, I think some of that idea that music and mathematics are really connected is actually referring to the way sound works and the way we perceive sound and the way our instruments work and all this kind of stuff. It's actually got nothing really to do with being able to play music or being a musician. It's all like the background information, the physics, okay? And physics is in everything. If you really wanted to like make the connection, you could make a really dodgy connection to just about anything in maths. if you really tried. And that's what I feel like's going on here, is someone's like, oh, sound has all these mathematical properties, and I don't know, probably looking at, what was it, Plato or one of those guys, I don't know, these historical ones about, there's like even different ways of tuning. So like, you know, before we had the even temperament, like the ways people used to tune instruments were like maybe more mathematically pretty or something, but you still don't need that to know how to play an instrument. You're not, when I play the violin or when I sing, I am not thinking about mathematics. I'm just doing the thing based on my practice, and like, it's nothing to do with maths. The fourth thing I want to mention is about like synthesis, if you ever use a synthesizer. So some electronic artists who make heavy use of synthesizers might gain something from understanding a bit about the physics of how synthesizers work. There's a few different ones, but you know, they basically start off with generating a tone, which is usually like a sine wave, or you could have a square wave or a triangle wave, and like, but they're all based on sine waves in the end. Like, oh my god, let me not draw that diagram, but like when you add particular sine waves in a particular pattern, that's how you basically get those square waves and triangle waves. That's just like, those are the result of doing that a lot of times. It's actually really fascinating how different sounds add to each other to make different tones. But anyway, I'm getting on a tangent again. What I'm trying to say is, when you're using a synthesizer, sometimes knowing a bit of the theory about what different sounds are like and how they add up together might give you some benefit in developing or constructing a sound on a synthesizer. But with this one, you still kind of don't really need to know how a synthesizer works to be able to use it. Like, I mean, I know so many people do this without having gone to university or learned any of this stuff. You can just get the synthesizer, like whether it's a software one or I think hardware ones, maybe you need to know a little bit more about how to connect things, but at least with the software one, it's there, you turn a few knobs, you listen to it, if you don't like it, you change it, and over time, just by playing with that little module, you'll get a feel for how different sounds change, so you don't necessarily need to know the physics behind it. It's definitely interesting to me, and it might help you get more targeted in terms of finding that sound that you want, but ultimately it's not necessary. The fifth thing that you might tell me, and which I would respond to, I'm just gonna read what I wrote on my piece of paper because I don't have the energy to elaborate really, although I might get on a tangent. Let's see what happens. Some art-wanky musicians may use mathematical processes to create their music, but to me, most of it sounds like unmusical shit, and what I've encountered tends to still be relatively basic mathematics. Yeah, so like, you can come up with a formula that will tell you how to make your music, in the same way that you could just roll a dice and be like, well, this one means I'm gonna play this note, and this number means I'm gonna play another note, and you can just like do chance music if you want. You can do the same thing coming up with your own little mathematical formula for things. There's all that kind of stuff. But that's like using maths to make music. It's not a requirement to make music, and it often sounds kind of awful because a lot of it has randomness and like that, just these things that aren't usually musical. I think there are ways to make it musical, but it depends a bit on who is doing it. And there is a bit of this culture, like, at least when I was at uni, which was a while ago now, you know, that sort of art wanky culture is just like, ooh, if it sounds like garbage, how artistic is that? And I have done projects where I've intentionally made it sound like garbage, and you do get that kind of response. Like, it can take me, the very first thing I did in my composition degree, I just recorded a bunch of garbage. Some of you who've been around have actually heard it. What did I call it? I don't know, I'll find it, and if it's still online, I'll put it in the description, or up in the thing that you can click. You know, the thing that appears up here? Yeah. If I can find it, I'll put it there. But that basically, like, I recorded it into my webcam, the webcam microphone, a bunch of crap. I used to have a keyboard. I got this, the drum kit on it and went on the lowest ones and was just like bang, 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 looped that, and this is in Audacity, which is a free program, so like it's not even high tech. Then I detuned my guitar as far as it would go and still play notes and just like played crap, because even now I can play more guitar than I used to, but I'm still really bad at it. But back then, oh boy! So I was just like, chuck some effects on it, there you go. Get the violin out, play some garbage on that, because same thing, like I was okay at violin then, but like still pretty bad because I'd only just picked it up again. So I played a bunch of garbage on my violin, a little bit of pizzicato stuff, you know, chuck on some effects, reverse it, more effects, reverse it and all that. And like, I think I did 2 violin takes maybe, I don't even remember. At the end of the track, my family comes home and my dog is woofing, which would have been probably Max, like it was so old. But anyway, so the dog's woofing at the end. Chuck all these, like, I think it was only 4 tracks. Chuck the 4 tracks together with their effects, and there you go. That's my piece of music. It took me maybe half an hour on a weekend doing that. And then also in that submission that semester, I tried to make regular music, having not been trained properly, but like trying hard. It took me a long time. I put a lot of effort into trying to make the notes work and my basic understanding of chords at the time. And of course, that was that one that I actually put the effort into was poo-pooed. But the one that I did half an hour on a weekend, I got such good marks for that one that they were teaching acoustic music in a higher level class, and apparently I beat all them and my music was played to them as an example of how it should be done. And I'm like, I just pulled that out of my butt pretty much. So yeah, when it comes to, wow, that was a tangent. See, I always go on these tangents, but that would be an example of that kind of art wanky thing where if you wanted to, you could use mathematics. I could have done that using like some mathematical idea. And then you get these art wanky people who are like, ooh, it sounds so weird, I don't understand it. And there's that one I did last year for that dude who wanted me to get a real live sheep at uni for a project. But anyway, that's a different thing. Some of you have seen it. I can't remember if I posted it publicly on or just on Patreon, but wow, a little bit off topic because mine wasn't based on maths. But the point being that, like, I don't know that most people would call it music. Some people would just call it noise art, because it sounds terrible. But sometimes terrible things can legitimately be artistic or can just be accepted by artistic people who don't really understand or care about music in the sense of the music that I actually want to make. Yeah, I think I got a bit off topic about that, but I think you get the idea. Is like, not only are mathematical processes needed to make music, they often don't sound good, and something not sounding good, I don't know if you would call it music or sound art, noise art, whatever. Yeah, I probably should have used an example that actually used maths, but I didn't have one and I can't be bothered. Oh yeah, on a related note, so this is more specific to progressive metal that tends to use like mathematical kind of stuff. I mean, I got to admit, I don't know a whole lot about it because it's not a style that I particularly like. But yeah, the main thing that those guys do is just playing with weird time signatures, and they'll call that mathematical. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't actually listen to this style or care about it and haven't really looked it up to see if there's any more mathematics other than just playing with weird time signatures. But my perception, what I've seen of it and heard of it so far, is just that they play with weird time signatures and adding them together is somehow considered mathematical. I mean, you need to be technical, a good technical player to be able to play some of this stuff, because it's not as easy as the 1, 2, 3, 4 repetitive thing where you can just feel the vibe. Like, you've actually got to be counting and thinking about which part changes. Although at some point I imagine like you just learn the song and then you don't really need to count actively quite so much. But yeah, needs a lot of skill to play, but it's still just time signatures, which isn't really that mathematical. Like, you're not doing deriving or integration or calculus or imaginary numbers. None of that is coming into music, like the actual making of music. You don't need it for music. So anyway, I don't know if like I made enough sense because I did go onto a couple of tangents, but basically I get a little bit annoyed when people find out that I'm a musician and I was good at maths. I mean, I'm probably still good at maths, I just don't do it, and I've forgotten a lot of formulas, and like, I understand some of the basics. I could probably work out how to get the formula for like a solid of revolution if I really tried, but I don't want to. I don't like maths. You can't feel maths in the same way that you can feel music. So like, I like music, I'm just not great at it. It's not natural to me. I'm getting better at it as time goes on, but yeah, no, I just get annoyed when people find out that I've done music and I'm good at maths, and they're like, oh, I bet the maths is real helpful with the music, or else they're like, oh, music and maths, that's no, my being good at maths has nothing to do with my musical ability, and the fact that I'm a musician has nothing to do with me being good at maths in the past. It's not a thing. Can we stop with that? Like, there are mathematical things about the nature of sound, and it's interesting and fascinating, but nothing to do with actually making music. There are so many people who are so much better at music than I am who just have no clue about maths. And in the same way, there are so many people who are really, really good at maths who don't know shit about music. You get some crossover, of course, because, you know, people are individuals. Some people are good at more than one thing. But in the same way, you also have people who are good at neither. But anyway, no, like, the point being, there's not enough correlation to make the statement that music and math abilities are related. If they were, you would see a lot more mathematical musicians and a lot more musical mathematicians. I'm getting confused because they both start with M, and yeah. Anyway, if it was a thing, you would see more correlations in society, and we just don't have that. You get a few people who are good at a lot of things. That's it. Okay, and then, yeah, the physics thing. That's all it is. So please stop telling me that, or getting all like, ooh, you're good. Yeah. Just you see what you've done to me? I'm now speaking gibberish because I'm just anyway, that's all, and I will see you later, I guess. Fucking ton of If you want to see that assignment, I can try and dig it up because I'm pretty sure like I've saved almost everything that I did from my music school. And yeah, I can, I guess, upload it on Patreon. Probably make it Patreon only because I don't want to just like flood it out there. But yeah, if anyone's interested. But I think if you don't understand what's going on and the different, you know, mathematical concepts and physics kinds of things, it might not make a whole lot of sense. I don't know, I don't remember, I can have a check. But anyway, just